Shoalhaven Council has once again shown how confusion and delay dominate our meetings. In this video, I have used Notebook LM to unpack the debate around the voluntary house raising scheme, a program that's meant to help just 12 high-risk households. What should have been a straightforward, evidence-based decision turned into political theatre, with CR Kemp misrepresenting the scheme as some kind of compulsory up or out process. As you would know, I have serious concerns about the mental capacity of this councillor, and I personally believe she is totally unsuitable to be in the chamber. The facts are clear. The scheme is voluntary, funded largely by the state, and targeted to those most at risk. Yet instead of moving forward, Council voted to defer the matter for yet another briefing, wasting time, resources, and risking community confusion. This introduction sets the stage. Notebook LM will walk you through the detail.
All right, let's get into it. Today, we're diving into a local government story that asks a really interesting question. How can a straightforward plan to help flood-proof people's homes get so tangled up in confusion and delays? Let's break down what the source material tells us. And that's really the big question here, isn't it? How does a clear, seemingly helpful idea get so complicated? Well, according to the documents we've analyzed, the devil is, as they say, in the details.
Okay, so first things first, let's look at the actual plan, the official proposal put together by council staff to try and solve a very real problem.
So the whole thing revolves around what's called the Voluntary House Raising Scheme, or the VHRS for short. And honestly, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like, an offer to help people in the highest risk flood zones raise their houses up to a safer level.
Now, when you actually look at the plan's details, it was designed to be super specific. First off, it was completely voluntary, and it wasn't for everyone. This was a small pilot program for just 12, that's it, 12 of the most high-risk properties. The idea was to talk to those homeowners directly and confidentially. And get this, a really crucial point. The funding was already sorted out between the state government and the landowner. No council money was needed at all.
Seems straightforward enough, right? Well, this is where the story, according to the source, takes a really sharp turn. A public claim from one councillor is what seems to have lit the fuse on this whole thing.
According to the source document we're looking at, the whole narrative got flipped on its head. It alleges that public statements from a councillor started painting a completely different and frankly much more alarming picture for the rest of the community.
And just like that, you had two totally different stories being told at the exact same time. What was actually in the official report, and then this other version being talked about in public.
And this is where you can really see the split. On one hand, you have the staff report, a voluntary scheme for just 12 homes with targeted private conversations. But on the other hand, the story that was getting out there, according to the source, suggested this might be mandatory, that it could affect way more people, and that it demanded this whole community engagement, which, ironically, is the very thing staff had advised against to avoid giving people false hope. And really, it all seems to boil down to this one phrase, up or out. The source argues that using those words completely changed the game. It took a voluntary assistance program and made it sound, well, like an ultimatum, like you either raise your house or you could be forced to leave.
So with all this confusion swirling around, the whole issue finally came to a vote. But here's the twist. They weren't voting on whether to approve the plan or not. They were voting on whether to even make a decision at all.
The final tally was 7-4. A pretty tight vote, but decisive. So what did that 7-4 vote actually accomplish?
Well, it accomplished a delay. The council voted to just kick the can down the road, defer the whole proposal to some future briefing. And as the source points out, this decision effectively hit the brakes on the entire project, killing all its momentum. And this single vote is where the source starts to connect the dots, arguing that the real cost of all this confusion is way bigger than just one delayed project.
The analysis in the source kind of lays it out like this. First, you see a pattern of pushing back these big, important decisions. That leads to public confusion, which then starts to wear away people's trust in policies that are backed by, actual evidence. And the final warning is that all these delays, they could seriously jeopardize funding and ultimately the community's long-term safety.
So when you boil it all down, the source is basically saying that the real cost here is huge. When you stall well-researched plans, you're not just wasting time. You're risking funding, you're risking community resilience, and you're risking the public's trust in the whole process.
And that really leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on, right?
The story laid out in this source material really makes you think about that fine line between healthy democratic debate and, well, political noise that just gets in the way of getting things done. Where is that line, and when does one cross over into the other? That's a tough one, and it's something every community probably has to figure out for itself.
What we've just seen with the voluntary house raising scheme is not an isolated case. It's part of a pattern in Shoalhaven Council, where strategic, evidence-based initiatives are delayed, deferred, or buried in briefings, while trivial matters dominate the agenda. The confusion and misrepresentation in this debate risked alarming residents and undermined the trust that should come from clear leadership. In my view, this shows a council more interested in political theatre than practical outcomes. If Shoalhaven is to tackle real challenges like flood risk, infrastructure, and long-term financial responsibility, we need leadership that reads the evidence, respects staff advice, and makes timely decisions in the open. Notebook LM has shown the detail. The bigger question now is whether our council can rise to the level of leadership our community deserves.